Sorry, I'm just getting a glass of water. You saw me ducking behind the microphone. Hello, welcome everyone. I'm going to show that men can multitask. I'm going to talk and fill the glass at the same time. Welcome everyone to our 23rd Longford Lecture. Hard to believe we've managed 23. I think we should have not a priority, but a privileged class of people who've been to all 23. I can see some people sitting in the front row who certainly have. So if you're a lifetime member, well done. But welcome, and if you're a first-time visitor, welcome to our Longford Lecture. Very, very delighted to see you all here. So my name is Peter Stanford. I'm the director of the Longford Trust. One of the things this annual event does is make you occasionally look back and reflect on how quickly time passes. And one of the things that struck me, this being 2025, I'm not very good at maths, but 40 years ago, I was sent as a junior reporter to go and interview Lord Longford. I seem to remember I was slightly reluctant to go, but obviously it's turned out rather well, because here I am 40 years later. The interview turned out well, and the things that he said turned out well. So in that sense, we're commemorating him. We are gathering today at a time when news about what's going on in our prisons, which has been all over the headlines, is usually there for negative reasons. But what I really hope tonight will do, is inject a note of optimism, and as well as realism, in what is going on and what we can do about it, particularly if we all come together and we understand the problems. And come together in a way that will benefit all of society. So that's very much the feel and the wish of our Longford Lecture. I'm delighted to welcome on stage, sorry, rather slowly because you've been sitting there for a moment, our lecturer, Dame Rachel de Souza, the Children's Commissioner for England, and to thank her very much for agreeing to come and give this talk, and also for spending all morning going around giving interviews. She's been up since 5 o'clock in the morning, so a remarkable stamina. Can I also say a very special word of thanks for our sponsors tonight? We have two sponsors. The first is the Barristers' Chambers, 23ES, 23 Essex Chambers. So thank you very much to you. Thank you. And our second is the engineering and construction company, Atkins Realis. They work in partnership with the Trust on our employability programme, which makes sure that every scholar in the Longford Trust supports is able to go through when they graduate and get graduate jobs, because that's what degrees are meant to be about. And they help us make that happen, as well as sponsoring our lecture. So thank you very much, Atkins Realis. Now, we have always, the last few years, been joined for our Longford Lecture by the National Prison Radio, where this lecture is broadcast direct into prison cells all around the country. The team are up there doing that. And I was going to be joined on stage by the wonderful Lady Unchained, who's a very familiar name to people from Prison Radio, but I'm looking round and I can't see her anywhere. No. Okay, the traffic is very bad outside. Hopefully she may be here by the end of it all. So sorry, listeners on Prison Radio. I'm Peter Stanford. I'm nowhere near as good at putting things well as Lady Unchained, but I just want to welcome you sincerely and warmly to our Longford Lecture this evening. What is very, very important to us as a trust, and I think important to us as an audience, is about connecting different parts of the criminal justice system and connecting all people who care about it. So breaking down the walls. If you think about it, one of the things that prisons do by putting walls around them, obviously the walls are there to keep people in, but in a sense they're there to keep people out as well. Far too few members of the community are able to go into prisons to see what they're really like, and we'll hear more about that in a moment. But also it makes us feel that we're very different. Actually, we're all human beings, and we probably have much more in common than we have that is different. So So it's very important that you're here tonight. I'm staring at a spotlight as if the radio speaker is there. So welcome to our Longford Lecture. I just want to give you a very quick sense of where we are so you can have a picture in your mind. We're in the very beautiful Assembly Hall of Church House, which is round. It has a wonderful biblical quotation. I hope it's biblical. If it isn't, someone will tell me. We have a theology student amongst our scholars this year. He can tell me I've got it wrong. Around the roof here. And it's absolutely full. I'm looking up people of all ages, all backgrounds. So it's a very warm and receptive audience, and you're very, very much part of it. So welcome to you all. We also, for the first time, we live stream the lecture every year, and a very warm welcome to those who have joined on the live stream. The tickets went so quickly, we had to put on the live stream. So I hope you're having a good experience of this evening. But with the live stream is also going to be shown through a wonderful organisation called Way Out TV, who run an educational channel which appears in Cell in 70 prisons, that's about half of them, up and down the country. And they are live streaming our live stream, as it were, if that's the right technical phrase. So if you're watching tonight, welcome. It's brilliant to have you here. And again, you're very, very much part of our audience. A quick word of explanation for those of you in the audience and those watching on the live stream, through Prison Radio, through Way Out TV. Exactly what the Longford Trust is. Obviously, you know that we run a lecture, we organise a lecture, we have a director who talks too much, and we also we offer scholarships to young serving and ex-offenders to go on to university, to get degrees, to continue their rehabilitation that way. It's not that we believe that university is for everyone. There are all sorts of different ways of achieving rehabilitation, but the particular thing we work with is through university. And I hope that something of what you will hear at different stages this evening may make you think that university might be part of a route forward. One of the things that I've learned in my 300 years of going into prisons is that there's an enormous amount of potential in there. People who things haven't worked the right way, education hasn't worked the right way, but there are lots of ways forward. And I'd really, really encourage you, if what you hear this evening inspires you to want to explore that route, you probably do have the potential, even if people have told you in the past that they haven't. You'll have in your prison library, perhaps in your prison cells, a copy of Inside Time, the national newspaper for prisoners, goes into all prisons. And this month, we're very well planned, you can see, we put a 4-page insert in there about our Longford scholarships. So have a look at that, and you can get in touch with us through a free post address. So if you're listening or watching this evening and you're interested, please, please, please get in touch with us. Right, so to business. The first part of our evening, as those of you who know it well will remember, is the awarding of our annual Kevin Pakenham Prize, which has been awarded since 2021 in memory of our founding chairman, Kevin, who died suddenly in 2020. And I'm going to ask Kevin's wife, Ronke Phillips Pakenham. Ronke, you will all know from her reporting and presenting on ITN and ITV London, to join me on stage and to announce the prize winner. Ronke, welcome.
Thank you. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of background about the Kevin Pakenham Prize. And it's designed to recognise the public figure who's used their platform to make an outstanding contribution to the public understanding of what goes on in prisons. It's sponsored by the Bravatnik Family Foundation. Each year our winner is given £5,000 by them, and it goes towards prison reform and the cause they most admire. Past winners have included, and I hope I get this right, the screenwriter Jimmy McGovern, James Timpson, who's now the prison's minister, John Snow, one of my old colleagues, and last year it went to James Graham, whose play Punch, based on a memoir by one of our Longford scholars, Jacob Dunn, is currently running to 4 houses in the West End. And it's a brilliant play, and if you haven't seen it, please do go. This year, the judges have chosen not an individual, but instead a national treasure. I don't know if you can guess, I'll warm you up. At least, it plays to at least 5 million people tune into it every week on BBC Radio 4. Anyone getting close? And in the late spring of last year, it's The Archers. the world's longest-running radio soap embarked on a storyline that saw one of its young characters, George Grundy, I'm trying to do that with an accent, not very well, was sent to prison. Over the months, an impeccably researched plot has revealed what incarceration means to his family, his community, his victims, and of course to George himself. In this weekend's omnibus edition, he was learning how punishment continues even once you've been released. The stigma of a criminal record, meaning he's rejected as a volunteer in the local community shop by its unforgiving board. It's something our scholars experience, but hopefully will overcome with our support, and let's hope George will too. So the judges believe, because of its commitment to giving its listeners such a nuanced, realistic portrait of life in and out of prison, the Archers is making a substantial and sustained contribution in opening minds on the criminal justice system. And it's therefore a worthy winner of the 2025 Kevin Pakenham Prize. And I'm going to give the cast and the writers and the editor a name check. So Jeremy Howe, who's the storyliner. Oh, I do apologise. Editor Jeremy Howe. The storyliner David Payne and actor Angus Scobie. George Grundy, please come up. Before I give them the prize, I thought we'd just have a listen to an excerpt. Maybe?
Have a quick check through. Make sure you've got everything.
ID, phone, letters, photos. Yeah, it's all there.
And the clothes you arrived in. Can't you wear those if you're not a fan of our prison issue range?
Nah, they're too small now. I must have looked a right weed when I first came in here. Only good thing about this place is the gym.
Right, and this is the last form, confirmation of address. Number 1, the Green Ambridge.
Yeah, my dad's house.
Lucky you. Most lads get discharged to a hostel, unless there's someone looking out for them. They're back in here before you know it.
Not me.
Glad to hear it. Right, so you're entitled to a small discharge grant. It's not a lot, but it's better than nothing. Don't spend it all at once.
Thanks.
Is someone going to pick you up, or are you getting public transport? I can give you a bus timetable if you need it.
Nah, it's all right. My mum's coming to get me. She's probably outside already.
Mums are great, aren't they? Right, now before they let you go out through the gate, you'll have your ID checked and you might get patted down one last time.
Okay.
Best of luck, George. And don't take this the wrong way, but I hope I never see you again.
That was just as well. I think George Grundy should have it.
That explains the... Thank you very much. That was one of George's better days, wouldn't you say, when he was released from prison. I listened to the Today programme this morning. I work for the BBC. We live in interesting times. It was such a relief to hear you on the Today programme. You were brilliant. A bit like the Arga in the Brookfield kitchen where Jill bakes her lemon drizzle cake, the Archers is a well-loved part of the furniture of British cultural life. And a bit like a piece of old furniture, it doesn't get many prizes, so this is just brilliant. And it was such a surprise when Peter Stanford hunted me down to say we'd won this award. Winning prizes isn't really nice, but this one means a hell of a lot. I mean, the story has been running for nearly 2 years. That's what we do in the Archers. We play it slow, we play it long. I'm not going to tell anyone, I'm certainly not going to tell Angus here how long it's going to be running for. When we cast Angus Stovey as George in the middle, towards the end of COVID, what we wanted was a thoroughbred Grundy of yore, i.e. dodgy and bad. But once Angus took on the mantle of George, we quickly realised we had gold. In one sentence, Angus's George could be charming, warm, someone not to be trusted, someone not to be liked.
He was a bad 'un with a heart. And it was Dave Payne, standing beside me, a man who month in, month out writes a novella as he creates the story that we give to the writers, who came up with wonderfully messy crime at the heart of the tale of George. And because Angus is so good, we were able to point the story in several directions at once. You hate George and you care for him. And Angus was quite right to be worried when we told him that he was going to be sent down, because often, usually, when you leave Ambridge, you leave the show. But what I love about this story is we've followed George and his family and his victims beat by beat through a year of incarceration. And he's played it, I think he's played it brilliantly. And what we have is a bad 'un with a vulnerable, he may be a bad 'un, but he's a man who is very vulnerable. And we're rooting for him. And so you kind of hate him, you love him. Because the Archers, in its 75-year history, has had farming at its heart, we've always been meticulous in researching the farming. We have to get it right. But this has spread into every other corner of our storytelling. And outside of straight down the line factual drama reconstructions, I've never worked on a programme as rigorously well researched in every detail as the Archers. So it's a real accolade for the Longford Trust to recognise that we got it right. It was very important that we got George in prison right. And I'd like to thank Ryan Harmon from the Prison Reform Trust and the West Midlands Police, who've been advising us step by step by step. But the interesting thing about it is you have a plan for a story, and then the research tells you you've got to go in a different direction. And if you're wise, and I hope we're wise, you follow that direction. When you follow reality, you get a much more nuanced, much more textured, much deeper, and much better story. So I thank everyone who's helped us research this. But I would also like to thank our production team, all 12 of us, the 10 writers who've woven it into the Ambridge story, and our magnificent cast. And I'd like to thank the Longford Trust for honouring us. So thank you for the award, but I do warn you, and I warn Angus as well, you ain't seen nothing yet. Thank you.
Thank you. I could actually, Angus, can you just stand up for a moment? Can we just, it's very heavy, this statue, but can I just ask you to hold it up? So our annual Kevin Pakenham Award is made each year by one of our ex-scholars, Paul Grady, who's here in the audience, who graduated and has gone on, is working in Scotland now and doing very well for himself. I'm not going to embarrass him by asking him to stand up, but again, the same message, going forward, going forward. Okay, Dame Rachel, we've got one more thing to do before you deliver your lecture, and that is present our 2025 Longford Prize. We've been doing this for 23 years since we started with our first lecture. Hopefully you saw all the winners as you were taking your seat. We had every single one from 2002, Audrey Edwards, who died this year, all the way through to last year's winners, Ungrip. Now I'm looking at my notes now. I'm going to introduce you to our 2025 winner. We're going to try something slightly different this year. And we've asked one of our recent graduates, Brian Edman, who got first in his film studies degree at his London University and is now working as a director. We're going to show a short film that will tell you who our 2025 winners are, and then they're going to come up on stage. So bear with us for a couple of minutes. If our tech is working, can we see the film?
Every song means something different to everyone. That's the magic of music, that it means something different to everyone. Okay? We all have songs that mean something to us. And you can join in and sing with us. We don't mind.
And now the end is near. And so I face the final curtain,
started in 2014. The key is that we're using singing as a tool to develop fellowship and camaraderie. And not only are we doing this every week, coming into the different prisons and becoming friends and have trust, not just with the men or women that are in prison and the people from the community coming in, to understand that we are all the same. And when they get out, that we can be there if they need us. We can continue to be friends, or we can help them, like you said, to orchestrate the system. We can help them, to advise them, be there at the end of a phone, to deal with the trials and tribulations of life.
Meeting different guys who never sang before, and it's a joy to watch other people be happy.
What I had to do.
You can see that they're in a room where people really care about them, and they're able to express themselves.
Liberty Choir took me, helped me, gave me hope, gave me love, gave me the joy of singing. 10 years later, I'm now a recording artist, 2 albums in, I got cuts with other artists, and my life has turned around completely.
I did it my way. Yes, there were times, I'm sure you knew, when I bit off much more than I could chew. But through it all, when there was doubt, I ate it up and I spit it out. I faced it all and I stood tall and did it my
Singing is the prism through which you build confidence, you build trust, and it actually ends up being a sort of gateway education program. And one of the things that we commit to in Liberty Choir is that we will not let them down. We will come in every week, even if there's a lockdown, we'll go in and we'll sing and they'll be able to hear us.
That's what Liberty Choir is about.
And me as a person what's been in the system, unfortunately, for over 26 years, and now been out in the community for 12 years. This would not have happened if it wasn't for the two ladies that I'm sitting in between right now.
I did it my way. For what is a man? What has he got? If not himself, then he has not to say the things he truly feel, and not the words of one who kneels. The record shows I took the blows and did it my I did it my way.
Thank you, Richard.
Okay.
Enjoy your food.
Well, I have to get composed. I'm MJ.
And I'm Ginny.
And it's time for Liberty Choir. That's what I used to say when we first started Wandsworth Prison. I used to go out in the landing and I would yell, "It's time for Liberty Choir." Yes, it is singing, but it's so much more than that.
It took us 10 years to get the program started because they would say, MJ, go in and sing. You can't bring anybody else in. Well, what's the point? There are more people in this world that want to make a difference in someone's lives than not do anything. And you just got to open the door for them to be able to do something. When you sing together in a room, the community and the men and women in prison, not only do you have well-being, it's a given, but you learn about reading and writing and math and perceiving patterns and social history. You get self-esteem. You understand diction. Every song has a story, not just the composer, but the social history, everything behind the song, where you can talk about things for 2 minutes, 3 minutes. And because we develop friendship and camaraderie and fellowship, and find the fortitude from within to find self and the reassurance that I am somebody, I want them to feel free when they come in the room and understand that they are not forgotten when they come in and when they get out. And when they get out, these friends that they've met every week are there for them to help them orchestrate life, to support them. I always joke with them and say, I can't put you in my house and I can't pay your rent, but I'm a phone call away. And I can put a group of volunteers around you to help you orchestrate the system and advise you and guide you to the different organizations that can help. And we do it all through singing. We squeak and squawk, and somehow magic happens. And now Ginny's going to tell you about all the great people.
Well, so obviously we are the co-founders and the co-CEOs of the charity, but it is such a huge team effort. And I really feel, well, we've been wanting this prize for a really long time, so we're not an overnight success. It is the hugest honor, and I can't even remotely try to be cool about it because I feel really uncool about it. And I wanted, before introducing the people who also make it happen and are representing all the people who make it happen, just a funny little thing that in 2008, when I was a journalist with the Times for 20 years, I had the great good fortune to interview Lady Antonia Fraser, and she was fantastic. And her late husband Harold Pinter wrote and said that he recognized her in my interview, so that was another great moment for me. But I met Lady Antonia and Rachel Billington shortly after and talked about this sort of dream that we had maybe of doing something like Liberty Choir. So there's a sort of fantastic circular feeling about this moment too, because it did happen. And so I'd like to introduce, I know that we've got a very limited time, as Peter said. So I'm going to say, Kate Roop.
We're married, just in case if you hear me nudging her on, it's okay. Everybody relax.
Yeah, we have to say that a governor once said it's not that they just have a terrible dysfunctional working relationship. Well, that too, but so Kate Ruby, please, could you stand up? Thank you. Applause to Kate Ruby.
What is she?
I'm about to say. Kate Ruby is one of our ambassadors and was a prison officer for 28 years and is co-founder of the Clink, and is an incredible advisor to us, but and shoulder to shoulder all the way. And I think that here there are prison officers who are fantastic in the prisons. You know, there are ones who aren't, but Kate's an example of somebody who really cares, and it matters, and that's how working with prison officers who do care help us to be a successful charity. And then we've got a prisoner, a former prisoner, Ross, thank you, who we met at our very first session in Wandsworth Prison on the 1st of April 2014. And he has been a fantastic, he actually nominated us when he was still in prison for the Longford Trust Prize, unbeknownst to us, which was 2015, yeah. And then next door to him is Vicky, his wife, fantastic, and is our third ambassador to be with us. And of course, the families are so important to people in prison, and Vicky, I know, felt very helped by Liberty Choir and has been along every year. They fundraise for us and have been fantastic. And then we've got Kate Steer, here we go. Kate is my right-hand woman, and our operational team, the charity would be nowhere without, so that's fantastic.
She's representing all the people that work in the background.
And then I've got Paul Webster. Paul Webster. I'm almost there. 1 minute. I'm almost at the end. Who is our trustee and also now was an editor of the Observer till last November and is now a volunteer as well at Pentonville. And when we've got finally
Denise and Tom.
I'm going to be very quick now. Denise Mueller-Brown, a volunteer. Thank you. And Tom Miller, my son, who's also a musician in the prisons. Is that okay? We're there.
Just one last thing. To all the guys and women that are listening on the radio or on the TV, you know us, hi, and we changed our mailbox address, so if you want to write us a letter, we're now Liberty Choir UK, Jackson Hall, Portland Place, Hastings, TN 341QN, because I know you're going to write and say, I watched you on Way Out or on the radio. Bye, guys.
So when we had our conversation, I kept saying, you can't do more than 2 minutes, and I just knew. But anyway, wasn't that fantastic? I don't know about you, it made me cry, which I know is sentimental and probably patronising, but hey, you know, given all we've heard about Wandsworth Prison, wasn't it fantastic to see that? Actually, the thing I also ought to say is Governor Andy Davey of Wanstead allowed Brian, our brilliant cameraman, to go in and make that film. And we had to pixelate the faces, as you see. That sort of openness in prisons, that bringing people in, it's what I was talking about beforehand. It's a really, really good example. So well done him. Okay, now to our main event, the lecture. It's my very, very great honour to introduce our 2025 lecturer, Dame Rachel de Souza, a former head teacher with an enviable track record in turning round failing schools, now Children's Commissioner of England since 2021. She's bold, she's passionate, she's an influential champion. She reaches across political divides and speaks up for children who don't have a voice, in order to advocate, as she was this morning on the airways, a radical overhaul in how we treat children, those up to the age of 18, who end up in the criminal justice system. It's my great pleasure to introduce Rachel de Souza.
So very good evening. And it's a real honour to be standing here on this stage addressing all of you in this hall, but especially to those listening on National Prison Radio. And this lecture is dedicated to you. And it's a special day for me today because I'm not alone here in this hall. My youngest brother is here. I say youngest, the baby. I've got lots of brothers, but we're all in our 50s and 60s now. But because of him, I was introduced to prisons in my 20s and 30s when he spent time and did time in prison for a number of the factors I'm going to be talking about today were factors in his life. And so I feel very personal about what I'm talking about today. And what I would say, and this is to everyone listening on National Prison Radio, is that he is absolutely wonderful. He helps others, he's productive, he's got a fantastic life, fantastic friends. It was not easy. It's not an easy path. I think it's a path I'd rather all of you inside didn't have to take, but it can be done. And we can make a difference, and people can make a difference. And he did it all himself. So I'm Rachel de Souza, I'm the Children's Commissioner for England. This role has existed for 20 years, following the brutal and preventable murder of a little girl called Victoria Climbié at the hands of those who should have loved her the most. Some of you will remember her. I remember her every single day in everything I do. And my role was created all those years ago to make sure that children were listened to, their voices and views reflected in the public debate, in policy, and in promises made. I speak to children arriving here cold, exploited, and lonely on small boats. I speak to children in mental health wards, the most unhappy children, more unhappy than children in prison, looked after by guards, not nurses, children in children's homes that are actually tents or caravans, children who find it hard to communicate, and children who desperately want to be heard. And I speak to children in schools, at youth clubs, in libraries, at sports clubs, children whose lives might be considered more ordinary. I tend not to think of them in that way, though. I've spoken to more than 1 million children since taking office, and I've yet to meet an ordinary child. Because if there's one thing that animates the work I do and have done, is that there is nothing ordinary about childhood. Childhood is a time that shows the vast and impossible potential of human life. It is springtime. It's when you see the beauty of both the person children are right now and the person that they will become. It's a time of joy, a time of change, of becoming, of exploration where, as Eliot has it, the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. Regardless of their circumstances, I think there are a few things that unite the children right across the country. And one of those things, depressingly, is that so few of them tell me that they feel heard or understood by those in power. They feel more disenfranchised, they feel forgotten, overlooked. And some of those who are the most maligned, the most ignored, are the children, the teenagers, in prison, in cells like some of you are now. And it's some of those teenagers, their stories, that I want to speak to you about this evening. And it's perhaps apt, given the nature of these lectures, that I'd like to begin with the experiences of two people in cells who've been at the forefront of my mind lately. The first is St. Kevin of Glendalough, via St. Kevin and the Blackbird by Seamus Heaney. Heaney's poem tells us the story of St. Kevin. He's kneeling in his cell, his arms stretched out the window because the cell is narrow, and a blackbird comes along and nests in his hand and leaves eggs. Kevin, feeling the warm eggs, is moved to pity, and finding himself linked into the network of eternal life, keeps his hand out of the cell like a branch for weeks to protect the eggs until they hatch. We're challenged by Heaney to imagine being Kevin. Are his fingers sleeping? Does he still feel his knees? Or has the shut-eyed blank of under-earth crept up through him? Is there distance in his head? And the whole time, he prays the old prayer, often attributed to St. Ignatius, to labour and not to seek reward. To labour and not to seek reward. This poem has always struck me as a clarion call. To do things because they are right, just because they are right. Because doing things that are right has its own reward. To protect new life, just starting out. To nurture, to live your values, come what may. For me, the most precious thing, the thing worth protecting and nurturing, is childhood itself. Because now I want to tell you what happens when you value that innocence too cheaply. This is a story, my second cell story, of a boy I met in a prison cell last year. A boy who a few weeks earlier had been out with a mate on his bike in Liverpool on a summer's day. He said, "We could hear shouting, so we went out around the corner, and I thought, hey, what's happening here?" There was just loads of little kids and grown men egging the kids on to chuck stuff at the police. This boy, with many others, was one of those involved in the riots in 2024. And he presents us as a society with a question and a challenge and a choice. Do we say, this boy scared people, he hurt people, he is guilty, he must be punished? Or do we say, this child scared people, he hurt people, he is guilty? Where in that have we failed him? How do we engage him so he doesn't do it again? How do we break the cycle before it beds in? Do we place the failings of our society at his feet, label him as guilty and move on? Or do we acknowledge that maybe there's somewhere in his life where we as adults have failed him too? This boy who was lost, uncertain, and cleaving to fear and hatred of others because he was not shown a way to love and respect himself. And what did happen? What choice did we make? He was sentenced to custody, his education interrupted, his dreams of a career as an electrician and a future irreparably damaged. We simply saw his guilt, and we didn't allow for the fact that actually he's a child, a big one, a tall one, sometimes a roguish one, but a child. In my role as Children's Commissioner, I've been lucky enough to see the joys and achievements of thousands of children, those who are excelling in their education, going on to the careers they've dreamed of, children who are living in homes filled with love and ambition and attention. But I believe we are letting children down by failing to provide moral leadership and to show them how to be a child today. We've left a vacuum in the services that children need, in the moral and social fabric of our country, and nature abhors a vacuum. We've left children to fill it for themselves. And for these children, we've allowed hatred and despair, fueled online, to fill a void that should be filled with community. We've retreated from our moral duty towards these children, our duty as policymakers, as educators, as leaders, to find ways to allow them to be part of something bigger than themselves, to see beauty in the world. And then we're surprised when they fall down. And it's the way we treat children that we should be judged on. John Paul II, Pope John Paul, St. John Paul said, as the family goes, so goes the nation, and so goes the whole world in which we live. And my coda to that would be, as the child goes, so goes the country. And the truth is, as a country, I believe we are failing. We're facing a crisis in childhood, and a nation that's willing to endure a crisis in its childhood has lost all sense of its own future. So what does it mean to be a child in 2025? This is a question that we're struggling to be honest about. And there is a crisis developing in childhood. For too many, childhood is characterized by loneliness, by fear, by anger, by sadness, and even by hunger. For too many, childhood is characterized by the abject and grinding poverty in which they grow up. For too many, childhood is characterized by the things they see on a 6-inch screen that they will spend hours and hours and hours every day looking at. And where has that got us? Children rioting across the country, been part of burning down libraries. After the attacks in Southport last summer, the burning down of a library, of Spellow Library, because they are bored, lost, and disaffected. Young people not feeling safe where they live. The world too visceral, too real. Hiding, hidden, disengaged. Fueled by an alternate reality and society online. And we have abdicated this responsibility because, frankly, it was easy. Because there was money to be made. Because dealing with these threats as they arose seemed hard. And that's why I want us to reflect on the sanctity of family, of childhood, on the fragility of childhood. Childhood is short, wild, precious, and you only get one. Let me tell you, no matter how secular a society is, We will always sacralise something. There's always something that we view as intrinsically important, something so valuable that we choose to do the hard yards, to do right by it, to protect it. And I think we ought to view childhood in this way. I'm sure many people would say that we do. Well, then we really ought to act like it, because right now we're failing. But we can fix this. No failure is absolute. I think it can start in early years and it can start in schools. I recently conducted a census of every single head teacher in this country. 90% of them responded, asking them what they knew about their pupils, what form of pastoral support and care did they offer, because that's what children tell me they want: to be known, to be understood, to be cared about, to work hard and be rewarded with success, to take part in their communities and to be welcomed in them. Do you know what? I was a head teacher for 20 years, teacher for 32 years. I was shocked by how little some schools knew about the children they're teaching, despite their best efforts. 60% of schools couldn't give me a figure for how many children have lost a parent or been bereaved. Parents died. Fewer than 1 in 3 secondary schools could give me an exact number when we asked them how many children had a parent in prison. In fact, they were 2/3 out. They underestimated it massively. That most profound fracture, totally hidden. Now let's think for a moment what that means. A child going through these life-changing events, scared, uncertain about the future, looking for guidance and safety and care, looking for patience and love, and their school, the place where they should be going every day, doesn't even know it's happened. How can we expect that child to get the help they so desperately need? And that's what I wanted to make clear in my blueprint for the future that I've just published, the Children's Plan. 15 years ago, I was at the forefront, on the front lines of the school reform movement, and we did a lot of good. Schools are pretty much unrecognisable to 20 years ago, those of you who haven't been in. They're better. There are more children reading. It feels better. But we didn't solve education. And the fracture of the pandemic was not given a solid enough cast to heal. It's time to steel ourselves once again and apply all our care and effort to reform. But this time, ensure that reform is for every child, wherever they live, whatever their circumstances. Not just of education, but reform of childhood. Not a place left behind, but a whole generation. The fracture, the polarisation, it's entrenching, and we're ignoring those cries. Look, I'm not despondent or hopeless, even if I sound a bit miserable. I actually think we're in a really good place to do this. After all, we do stand out against some of our international neighbours in that we've always recognised the role that schools play in children's spiritual, moral, social and cultural development. We've always done that in this country. Since the Church of England gave its schools to become state schools, the law has always recognised the child as a whole thing. Many parts of our school system derive their roots from the philosophies that include the idea of formation, the idea that schools have duties beyond the imparting of knowledge to shape the next generation, to shape the nation's citizens. It's a view that bestows on schools a profound mission. It means knowing our children better, having the support systems in place to ensure they can do well. And we know for sure that when children feel known and cared about, it means they're more likely to attend, to engage, to attain, and to excel. There is no dichotomy. Happy children do well, whatever that well means for them. Whether success is Oxbridge, or whether, as one of my young ambassadors whose brother has got serious and complex needs says, Freddie, match the colours. Whether it's matching colours or whether it's Oxbridge. It means a focus on the whole child, recognising the intrinsic dignity of the human person within each and every child, the unique value we assign to childhood. It means bringing up children as citizens, as appreciators of truth and beauty. I've always believed, and I still do, that the best path, the most important diversion for any child is a high-quality education with formation at its core. Because the ethos of formation recognises the precious value of childhood and charges the adults in a child's life with nurturing and protecting it. Now, outside of school, I see that when we fail to value childhood, this failure compounds and ossifies. Those who are on the margins feel it most acutely. Take children in care, a group to whom we've got a profound social responsibility. The government, all of us, should be their parent. We are all their parents. The question should not be, is this good enough? Would it be good enough for our own children? Because they are our own children. Everyone in this room is likely aware, and I've been speaking about it today, of the fact that children in care are more likely to have involvement with the criminal justice system than other children. In terms of youth prison, at least 2/3 of children in the youth secure estate have been in care at some point. Later this week, I'm going to publish that research showing 2% of children who've never been in care are found guilty of an offence. If you've not been in care, 2% of children are found guilty of an offence. If you've been in care, it's over a quarter, 27%. But my research is even more damning. Nearly half of those children had their first contact with the criminal justice system after they entered care. These are the children who should be the most protected of all, and yet, instead, they're being criminalised. What is perhaps most telling is that look at some of the charges they're arrested for. These children in care are twice as likely, 15% compared to 8% for other children, twice as likely to be arrested for criminal damage. Now, that's not to trivialise that offence, but I'm told time and time again by my own advocacy team, who are here today, about children's homes calling the police when a child breaks something. Now, I do not make light for 1 second of how hard those children's home staff are working and how many of them are trying to provide loving care to deeply traumatised children. But it can't be right that we put children in homes, then criminalise them for acting out and acting badly. Would you call the police if your own child broke something in your house? If we've not been able to address their behaviour, then the responsibility lies with us. Let me tell you a story about a little girl, Sarah, I'm going to call her. Home is where we should feel safe, right? If, as Eliot puts it, home is where one starts from, then Sarah's start was really difficult. Her early life was beset by some of the most fundamental challenges a young life can face. When she was about 6, it started to become clear she needed far more help than her family could provide. The consequence of early trauma, her formation, it started to rear its head. The family asked for help, didn't come. And so Sarah got older and her behaviour became more complicated. Her school and her family couldn't give her the help she needed. She was harming herself as an outlet, trying to make her body disappear so her pain would disappear too. Sarah was permanently excluded from school. Most youngsters, teenagers in the secure estate don't go to school. Hadn't been to school for years, but Sarah was excluded from school. At the same time, her distress was growing and her behaviour was becoming more acute. On one night of crisis, her family called the emergency services, and they called them because they needed help. And the non-emergency services hadn't answered their calls for help. So the police came, arriving at home and finding themselves in the middle of a difficult scene. So what did they do? They decided to charge Sarah with a criminal offence. That would not happen to our children. The police would see them as children, desperate maybe, sad maybe, vulnerable, not as a criminal. And so before she was even a teenager, Sarah was remanded. I imagine Sarah's idea of home became an unstable and moving thing. One placement, then another. Secure children's homes, prisons, mental health wards, placements, places, houses, not homes. Places that were unsuitable, inappropriate, illegal. Where is Sarah in all of this? The authorities had arrived. The state had intervened. She was in the system. Surely she was getting the help that everyone had cried out for. Too often, no. Too often, she was left filthy, covered in blood, unwashed, unwell, and unsafe. And she responded as unhappy children do. She lashed out. stuck in a loop of violence, mainly towards herself, where she knew that if her behaviour escalated, she might get some support. No one taking responsibility for her, as we do for our own children, never mind love, there wasn't even care. Now, other children to get to act out and have some of these reactions in private, in their homes, within the careful fold of a family that can forgive and forget and teach better. Because children make mistakes. Other children, in short, get to have childhoods. Sarah's reactions were not a child making mistakes. No, they were incidents. Incidents with paper trails, something to log, something to refer back to in serious case reviews. Paper trails that made it very clear it was Sarah who was responsible for these incidents, not the adults, not the institutions, not the society that hadn't helped her. And so eventually, one of the places Sarah was placed was a custodial setting, a prison. How many of you listening were first denied your innocence as a child, like Sarah was? First looked up at that ceiling, the Formica off-white through the bars, locked up and in when you should have been cared for. Even if we believe that's the right thing to do, I can tell you it doesn't work. She was denied her right to be innocent until proven guilty. The system assumed she must be guilty by dint of her story. And once you're remanded in custody, your innocence is gone. You see things, you're told you are guilty, you feel you are guilty, because why would they treat me this way otherwise? And Sarah is not alone. Last year, nearly 200 children who went on to be acquitted were remanded in custody. And almost 450, on top of that, went on to receive a non-custodial sentence. And we must remember that those on remand are spending significant time in prison. 40% of teenagers in prison are on remand. Last year, over 100 of those children spent over 9 months in custody on remand. The report I've published today shows there's huge variation around the country when it comes to children's chances of ending up in custody. Over the course of 10 years, one local authority used custodial remand for 100% of all remand episodes, while another local authority used it for 38%. They found different alternatives that weren't prison for the children. Custodial remand is not inevitable. We can do things differently. And we need to do things differently. We need alternatives. We need specialist fostering. We need care at home with people who can love you, who can keep you safe. And this brings me to the place where I think failure is most acute in the prison system. It was Dostoevsky who pointed out the degree of civilization in a society can be judged by entering its prisons. My research on children in our prison system shows just how poor those relationships have become. Many of the young people I've spoken to tell me their time in the secure estate exacerbates the disadvantages they face rather than addressing them. They say things like, county lines start and end in HMP. For a child to end up in custody, it usually means countless chances missed further up the line. All of the children who've ended up in custody have had the educational journeys you might expect. Unrecognised need, attendance falling away to nothing, eventual expulsion. I go into all the YOIs and secure children's homes and I ask the boys, because there are no girls in the YOIs anymore, I ask the boys, when were you last happy at school? And it's nearly always age 10 or 11. Half of the children in custody haven't been to school or college for at least a year before they're sent to prison. And wait for this is really shocking. 20% of them, of the 20% of the 950 children that we've locked up, teenagers, in prison over the last 5 years, went to 6 schools. 6 schools. And I can tell you exactly where, because I did the research, I used my data power for it. So look, it's fixable. If we choose to, if we prioritise it, we can get the support in. But that's not what we're doing. Today, we're in a position where our secure institutions are regularly closing because they're just unsafe for children. There have been reports just recently about alleged sexual abuse in Oak Hill. I visited Oak Hill, where 1 in 6 children in that prison context reported being sexually assaulted by the staff in the past year. Saying sorry is not enough. It's not enough, and it's meaningless if it doesn't come with the changes that we need. And we must not kid ourselves that these things are just consigned to history. These are things happening right now. Chief Inspector said that Feltham Youth Prison was the most violent prison of all adult and children prisons last year. That's shocking. So how can change begin? Where would we start? I know of only one antidote to this failure, and that antidote is listening, connection, to give us the courage to do different. And that's why we must listen to children, to engage them on their decisions about life, consult them meaningfully when we're changing the law, even when it only may affect them tangentially. I've just made sure I've taken the voices of the most vulnerable children to the assisted dying bill, because they're terrified. People won't pay for them to live, but they'll pay for them to die. And the Lords, they just hadn't heard that. So, we must listen to children's voices. I want to speak to all those children who are coping and enjoying their lives, but also make sure I speak to the children who are harder to reach, those in hospital, those in care homes, those in YOIs. And as I look back on my time in this role that's allowed me to confront the joys and tragedies of childhood, of human experience, I'm brought back time and again to those visits in prison. The only thing that wakes me up at night in a cold sweat are the children I've met in prison when I go see them. It wakes me up in an absolute cold sweat. They've been the most profound experiences in my life as that door bangs and it's a teenager. My heart turns to a young man who I met in prison who basically I was in a cell with my colleague with 3 big, tall, 6'1" boys, and the alarm went off and all the guards went mad and running around and they locked us in. So I thought, what do I do now? So I called my head teacher, so I said, what do you love? What do you love doing? And the boys said to me, music. We love music. If I could do anything in life, it would be music. So I just happened to have some sheet music with me, so I said, stand up. So we all stood up. I said, we're going to sing. And we just spent 20 minutes singing. We spent 20 minutes singing, and they said that was the most stress-free, beautiful thing of their day. And the beauty of his voice, one of the boys particularly, in contrast to the misery of his surroundings, must galvanize us every day to keep trying to make things better. Because today, for the children in our prisons, the children who need to be heard, things are far from good enough. And what should change look like? This is a question I ask myself repeatedly, and I'm challenged about on the media and by ministers. Well, I get to go around the world to see children's commissioners and children's services everywhere. And I was recently in Los Angeles, and I was in the youth courts, and the judges were like, you're going to Pasadena, Rachel, you're going to go see our youth prison. We're so ashamed of it. It's terrible. You'll never have seen anything like it. So I headed up to the hills, expecting to see like an LA movie. I thought I'd be outraged by the conditions. The moment I walked in, the air, the smell, the atmosphere, the relationships, the love, the system, everything was different. And I dare say better. Even LA prisons are better than what we're doing with children. And I've been everywhere. Of course it was awful, how could it not be? Yet there are people there who cared about kids, hugged them, who would worry if they didn't get involved in education. There were books everywhere. And it's perhaps not a surprise, given my background, that I believe in education, but I can tell you, the kids in our YOIs, our youth prisons, believe in it too. They're crying out for more education, keen for everything from physics A-level to carpentry qualifications. And when I say, you're in here for 20 years, you're going to adult, what's your plan? Every one of them is, I want to get a job, I'd like to do this, and I need education. And that's why I'm here speaking for the Longford Trust. Look, I appreciate the challenge, of course I do. And I've seen the admirable work. I spoke to one child who was taught to read and write for the first time after entering a secure setting. But I'm worried we've become complacent about children in custody. We treat it as a battle won because there are far fewer of them. We've got down to several hundred rather than several thousand. We've tweaked the forms of custody with a secure school, but not the fundamental approach to locking children up. We can't stop at the last 450. We cannot stop. We have to close all youth prisons now. We have to. And we have to find genuine, decent alternatives. We must not remand children, innocent children, to custodial settings. We've got to build alternatives. We mustn't allow complacency about the pipeline from care to prison. I have never met a parent whose ambition for the child is not being homeless or not stuck in a cycle of crime. If we're to have the courage of our convictions to truly challenge ourselves to believe in the potential of children, of all children, we've got to think about those children charged with the most serious offences who end up in custody. These children too, these teenagers, must be allowed to be teenagers, to be children. And as things stand, they're not. When the learned Baroness Hale gave this address, she said of the treatment of women and girls in the criminal justice system that a male-ordered world has applied to them its perceptions of the appropriate treatment of male offenders. I would add adult to that. An adult male-ordered world has applied its perceptions of appropriate treatment to children. Look, I don't think it's easy. Bluntly, it's not politically convenient, what I'm saying. But the measure of rights is not if we give them to people that we like. The measure of value is not if we do things when they're easy. What I'm suggesting will take money, it'll take hard work, and it will take a constant drive and ambition for reform, but I believe it can be done. The lesson I take from those who've given these lectures before me, the lesson I take from Lord Longford himself, was perhaps put most simply and elegantly here by Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who said, "No one is a totally hopeless and irredeemable case. We must never give up on a child, never think they are past the point of being given a second chance." As I was leaving Feltham the other day on a recent visit, a boy shouted over the fence to me because they know you're not, you're listening to them. "You lock us up in here with criminals and nothing to do. What do you expect when we get out?" He summed it up better than most. Those children should have the very best teachers, the very best carers. One of the glittering prizes of our care and education system should be the opportunity to help these children turn around their lives. So often this faith in the possibility of redemption is treated as naive and as childlike. Perhaps it is childlike. Perhaps that's no bad thing. I began today with a story about a man in a cell holding his hands out in the wind and rain to protect God's creatures as they started out in life. Let me end on a similar note. I recently spoke to a boy in a secure children's home. At every step, he'd been treated as guilty, as harmful, as dangerous. So when he arrived in Manchester at his secure children's home, he held out his hands for the cuffs, a kid. But no cuffs were forthcoming. Instead, he was shown care. He was shown love. He's now taking his GCSEs and thinking about his future again. And he asked me, "Do you think I'll be able to have a normal life one day?" It's hard, but it's not impossible to do the right thing. And we must all commit to that possibility. To that end, let us labour and not seek reward. Let us allow those glimmers of hope be our guide as we seek to rebuild the chance of redemption for these children. Just as Frank Cottrell-Boyce, our children's laureate, who's here today, said at the rebuilding of the Spellow Library, the library in Walton that was burnt down in the riots, "No lies or fire can dim the light, this beacon on a hill." Thank you. Oh, yeah.
Sorry, can you hear me now? That's much better. You were nodding when you could hear because you're in the front row. Okay. Time for some questions. We've got a Slido up here, so if you send your questions through, God, some of you are very quick off the mark. They're here already. I'll do better than last year when I dropped the tablet on the floor and couldn't read them. We've also asked some of our listeners on National Prison Radio to pre-submit some questions. So I think actually I might start with one of those, Rachel. Lots of these ones are more statements than questions, but let's try this one. This is from Sam, who's in HMP Leeds. He wrote, "Some people in prison don't identify as someone who's been in the care system. This means they don't get access to the support the local authority can provide them. This is a problem. How do we change that?"
Yeah, look, this one is a simple one. These young people have been taken away from home and are living away from home. Therefore, they should be granted an EHCP, they should be granted a proper plan and have all the same benefits as if they were in care when they leave. I've been pushing government to do that. I'm hoping to see change on that. It's absolutely clear. Now, what we need is the care that all care leavers and people coming out of prison, the care, the support, the mental health support, the support with housing, all those things need to be in place. So it's one thing to be given the status, it's another thing to have the support that's needed. There's a lot of work to be done.
Okay, and we've got a question from the... we've all got microphones now, that's good. Question from the audience. Our minimum age of criminal responsibility is 10 years old, the lowest in Europe. Would you raise it, and to what age?
Yeah, I mean, I've argued since I came into role that we should raise it in line with the rest of Europe. So, I mean, at least 14. But I honestly think that, I argue always that children, in relation to services, I use the word children, are under 18. And I see some really interesting practice around, for example, in LA, basically, when you get to 18, your sentence is wiped. In Norway and the Nordics, they're also very good on this. So there's the what is the age of criminal responsibility, and I think we should go with Europe. But then there's how do we treat children who have offended? How do we ensure that they're rehabilitated, that they can have a life ahead of them, and that the support is there to do that? It would take politicians to be very brave, because they get very frightened about some of these changes. But surely it's better for all of us if we can get kids back on track and make sure that they enter adulthood as well-supported citizens who can function.
Good answer. Another question from the audience. Given your focus on the importance of education, what is your view on how the development of secure schools is going, and what the future holds for them?
So I think the secure school's closed at the moment, I think, because it had some problems around security around its doors. To me, I've been with my colleague Natasha from Unlock Graduates there. We went to visit the secure school. There are some things around the secure school we could really learn from. Those are things like the kind of support and counselling that have been offered to children. But I want to be more radical. The secure school is a prison institution, like the YOIs, when you look at it. What we need are secure children's homes, small, familial, caring institutions that are secure, where sentences can be served, but actually really focus on trauma, rehabilitation, getting things right, as well as education. So I think I want the government to be, it's good that they tried that out, but I want them to be more radical.
You must be very popular with the government, pushing into all these things.
They do send me little messages.
Do they?
Yeah, but we do get change as well. I am really hoping. We're publishing on care leavers on Thursday, and let's look out for me, because I want to see some change on that.
Okay, I'm going to get one more from M, who's in HMP Swaleside. I was in care from young. I went to prison age 13, and I'm still in jail at 23. For future generations, I feel they need to get referred to a programme for 4 or 6 weeks as soon as they start showing signs of destructive behaviour. I want the Children's Commissioner to know that school teachers need to be able to refer kids for meaningful help. Is that happening?
Yeah, look, I mean, what a tragic, painful story. A 13-year-old, it's a baby, a baby. And thinking of those boys, I always ask them, when did you last enjoy school? When were things okay for you? And it's always 10 or 11. Now, we've just published a piece of work, the Children's Plan, after surveying all head teachers in the country who are saying, basically, we're more worried about wider services, we're worried about poverty, we're worried about being able to put the support in for children. And we've put a plan together to try to get the government's next education plan around special educational needs and care, around making sure every child, whether it's a child with additional needs, poverty, did get supported. We're hopeful we're getting some good amber lights that those changes are going to get made. There is, we've had 15 years where we've focused on the academics, and schools have sort of pulled back on those other wider colleagues and services, and we need to wrap them around children in schools. And yeah, little Em should never have ended up there. They should, as soon as people started to see, she should have been supported, cared for, and whatever, kept out of this dreadful institution.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, all of you who've submitted questions and braved the technology. I haven't dropped the technology this time, that's good. And thank you to our National Prison Radio listeners who submitted questions. Sorry, that's a slightly short question session. I'm just conscious of time ticking on. There's a couple more things we've got to do. But can you just join me in saying a big thank you to Rachel de Souza once more? Felt a bit like Donald Trump then, creeping round behind Hillary Clinton. But sorry, obviously I don't look like him. Listen, one thing what I'd like just to share very quickly, particularly with our audience on Way Out TV and National Prison Radio, and with you all, what the Longford Trust does. So I've asked 2 of our scholars and 2 of their mentors. Each of our scholars get financial help from us, they get one-to-one mentoring, and they work with our employability project as well. So I've asked 4 of them to come up on stage with me, and we're just going to have a brief conversation, and then we'll move towards the end of the evening. So, Bea and Alice, Neil and Andrew, come up on stage, please. That would be lovely. I've asked them already, don't worry. Okay. You stay on this side. Yeah, stay on this side. Okay. So I'm going to start with you, Bea. Sorry, the terrible put the focus. I've said to them, if they're nervous at all, I'll just talk all the time, so they're not to worry at all. So, Bea, first of all, tell me, what's your degree?
My name's Beatrice. I'm studying criminology at the University of Westminster. I'm interested in criminology. I've always had an interest in social justice and prison reform from a young age. When I was 18, I went to advocate for somebody on death row, and that was long before I entered the justice system myself. So coming out of prison, enrolling into a criminology degree feels like the right thing to do. And to use my lived experience in the classroom feels really important.
And tell me why you got in touch with the Longford Trust and what you feel the Longford Trust has been able to help you with. What's the Longford Scholarship meant for you?
Well, lovely Claire and Sarah, wherever she is, came to visit me when I was probably at my lowest point in my life in Bronzefield Prison, early on into my sentence. And I was escorted to the library where I met the lovely ladies, and they, for the first time, gave me something I hadn't experienced in a long time, and that was real hope for the future. And through the Longford Trust, I felt so much direction and purpose, and like I could look forward to the future. And it's not just, the financial support or the courses, which are amazing, but it's also all the other Longford scholars and the mentors that have given me so much, especially Alice, who's completely inspired me, her journey in particular. And you're an amazing person. I feel so lucky to have you. So, thank you.
I'm There we go. Alice, so
Hello.
what prompted you to volunteer to be a Longford Trust mentor?
Quite a few years ago, a colleague of mine who's sitting in the audience, she told me that she was a mentor. And so I started reading about the Longford Trust and got really interested into it. But I didn't have the capacity to provide support at that point. But yeah, I came into education quite late, didn't have any A-levels. And also experienced like a lot of barriers and sort of difficulties navigating education. So I kind of know what it's like to, face difficulties in going through education. And I wanted to kind of give that back because I received support. It was through scholarships and like emotional support that I was able to do my education. And I think that education can be really transformative, but we need to build support networks and solidarity and in order to support people to be able to flourish in education.
So tell me what mentoring's like. How does it work? What do you two do?
We meet up, don't we, once a month, and then sometimes on Zoom and text, and chat a lot.
We have great conversations.
Yeah.
Me and Alice talk for ages. We have such a shared interest in women in prison through the work you've done, the law connection, and also the shared lack of confidence sometimes when it's come to especially public speaking, but also education. And Alice gives me so much reassurance and just encouragement to keep going when I feel really, like an intruder sometimes in education.
That's brilliant. I'm conscious I'm turning my back on you two, so I'm coming back. So, Andrew and Neil, mentor and mentee. Andrew, what degree are you doing?
So I'm doing a law degree. I did a indeterminate prison sentence. I did 12 and a half years in prison, and my passion for law was ignited because I kept coming across people asking me questions about adjudications and stuff like that. So I got involved in that, but also I was struggling with the family courts and I didn't have a representative, so I had to represent myself, and I just thought I'd embark on a law degree. And
what stage are you at in it?
So I started what feels like a million years ago, because my fire was kind of dimmed, and then it was a bit like Take That and Lulu. It was relit by people like people like Mandy in the audience, who was at Coldingley prison when I was at my lowest. And so right now I'm in my last year.
Hey.
I'm in my last year.
So any lawyers in the audience looking to recruit anyone? He's a brilliant man. Neil, you are a lawyer, but no pressure on that front. But tell me, what made you want to be a mentor?
I guess I believe in the cause. That was a fundamental thing as far as, there's a past, but it's all about the future and the right of someone to have or create a new narrative going forward. And I remember originally I was thinking about second chances, because I hadn't been to lectures or I'd just seen this and thought, this is what I believe in. But you look at it now and it's more about having a chance rather than a second chance. And everybody has that right. And when you've got someone like Andrew who's keen to listen and learn and is brilliant in his own right, it's just a total pleasure.
And tell me about what. So again, how does your mentoring relationship work? Do you talk about law all the time? Do you talk about life?
Well, I'm not.
Do you talk about Lulu?
So no, we don't. It's more about strategy and knowing how to learn again. Because I entered education again pretty late on. It hadn't really worked for me the first time around. But so it's just the bravery of someone re-entering education full stop, but re-entering it with all these barriers is an incredible thing to do. A lot of strategy, and it's kind of like any machine. It can work perfectly, it can do its purpose to perfection, but sometimes it can get a bit clogged up. And so it's sort of mentoring is kind of being like tin of WD-40 or something, you know.
Loving the metaphors tonight. They're very good, aren't they? Andrew, just tell me in terms of going forward, when you've got this law degree, you're going to change the world?
Well, firstly, I don't need AI because I've got Neil. I had visions of maybe being an advisor to the prison service about releases, but that ship's already sailed, so I'll probably look at...
The releases or the prison service?
No, seriously, I'm thinking more about kind of commercial law, perhaps.
Right, okay.
But we'll see what happens.
And over to you, B. I know you're at the beginning of your degree, but what are your plans? Where's this degree going to take you?
Well, hopefully I'll get my degree and then, yeah. But ideally just continuing to use my voice to advocate for the women still inside. I hope maybe to write a book about the experiences and the stories that I gained from prison and to shine more light into the women's prison estate. I think it's important that there's transparency for the public, but also so we can push for change. So whatever that looks like, I'm not sure just yet.
That's brilliant. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, will you join me in thanking these four brilliant people? Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And it goes without saying, of course, if anyone thinks they'd like to be a mentor, our lovely mentoring manager, Vina, where's Vina? Can you just stand up? The lady waving her arms at the back. Have a chat with her and come and be a mentor. The more mentors, the better. So thank you very much for that. It is now time to invite our chairman, Tom Pakenham, to come up on stage and give you a little account of where the Longford Trust is up to financially and other things.
We are all their parents. We are all their parents. That line will stay with me for a long time. Thank you for an incredibly powerful, insightful, and somehow beautiful speech, despite the subject matter. I'm sure everyone in the room and listening in prison will leave with even greater determination to fill the vacuum that you identify with love, education, and community. The Longford Trust is at its heart a community. We've been going with our scholarship for 21 years, and it's kind of incredible to say that in this room this evening there are 70 Longford scholars. And today we welcome some new members to the community. Dame Rachel, the Archers, Liberty Choir, and all of the guests here tonight who are here for the first time. You are most welcome. My name is Tom Pakenham, and as chair of the trustees, it is my job to talk about money. I will tell you where our funds come from and where they go. But before I do that, I want to thank each and every supporter, from the very smallest to the very largest, and to those returning donors who support us year after year. Without you, this trust would not be able to do what it does and would not be able to have the impact that it has. So let me bring you up to date on our financial situation. In 2024, our income was £697,000. So far this year, in 2025, we have raised just over £448,000. We manage our money carefully and retain sufficient cash reserves to ensure we can fund all of the scholarships that we have committed to, but we rely on constant fundraising to cover our annual running costs and newly committed scholarships. We receive no public funding, and the money that we do receive comes from individuals, companies, and charitable trusts, all of whom share our goals and see the impact that we're having. The mentoring of scholars is done for free thanks to the generosity of our mentors. Based on 2024's full year numbers, only 11% is spent on fundraising and general administration, 9% is spent on this lecture and the prizes that we give, and the remainder, an impressive 80%, is spent on our scholarship and employability programs. We have recently completed our latest awards round in which we committed to a record number of scholarships, awarding to 43 young students in the latest cohort. This will bring the total number of young ex-prisoners and serving prisoners we are working with to 120, of which 84 are at university and 36 are in prison studying towards an open university degree. The cost of living has affected our scholars and driven up the average scholarship award to just under £6,000. To date, since we started, we have supported just under 600 young ex-prisoners. And we know that the combination of financial and mentoring support that we offer works. More than 80% of those that we support go on to graduate or get jobs. Just 4% end up returning to prison, a staggeringly low number when compared to the national average. The Ministry of Justice's own 2019 study of the economic and social cost of reoffending put to us as a society put it at £18.1 billion. Every scholarship that we award helps to break a reoffending cycle and adds to a virtuous circle instead. We are currently able to award scholarships to around 1 in 7 of those who express an interest, and data suggests that there are many more involved in the criminal justice system whose lives could be transformed by Longford Scholarship. We're a very small charity which targets our efforts and our money very carefully, but our impact is far greater than our budget. We care deeply about what we do, and it makes a difference to the lives of thousands of people. If you value the work of the Longford Trust and would like to support us in any way, including through a legacy donation, please don't hesitate to get in touch. And thank you very much for coming.
Sorry. Fumbling my pieces of paper there briefly. Thank you very much, Tom. We're going to end this evening, sorry, we've overrun slightly, but I think it was all in a good cause, as we always do, with a voice from inside prison. The Pinter poem, which is sponsored by Frank Longford's daughter, Antonia Fraser, who's here with us this evening, wife of Harold Pinter, is awarded to the best poem published by a serving prisoner in the past 12 months, in the pages of Inside Time, the national newspaper for prisoners. To read this year's winning poem, which is by Les Walker, who's at HMP Gartrey, I'm delighted to invite up on stage Will Pendry, who recently graduated with distinction in his MA in creative writing with the help of a Longford Scholarship, and is a poet and an actor. Will, come on up.
Do you ever judge a book by its cover? Do you ever look at a man and judge him a mug? Or looked at another and thought him a thug? And get someone else and think him a lug? A conclusion formed before he opens his mouth, so you close your mind because of what you see. You're deaf before he makes a sound. The guy you see could be a decent gadge. When his words come out, a total ledge. Funny, insightful, inspiring, delightful. But what you see, you formed a conclusion based on your bias illusion. Or is it our own twisted mind's delusion? Is this why we pay so much heed to what we see? He's a scruff, a snob, he's thin, he's fat. Look at the state of him, he must be a twat. Could it be human nature to say what we see, and what we see is how it must be? Or is that an excuse so people can be prats? Forming a conclusion because someone's wearing tat, or because he's thin, or because he's fat. We need to take 5 and stop being so old hat and listen to the person under the tat, even if he is thin, fat, scruffy, or what. Without forming conclusion, you may have a good chat. And even if you don't, and the man is a twat, then at least you gave him 5. And you can't be fairer than that.
Okay, that went down well. Just very quickly, when I said Will was a poet, he has recently published his first collection of poetry, which is called Overgrown, and it is, yep. And it's brilliant. Rachel Billington, who's here in the audience, described it as mesmerising. Very good word. I second that emotion. Do give it a read. And to make it easy for you, will be outside selling it as we go outside. It'd be a brilliant Christmas present, I can't help thinking. But thank you very much again. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, we missed Lady Unchained at the beginning, but she is here now, which is wonderful. So I'm going to ask her, first of all, to say goodbye to our prison radio audience and to all of you, and then I might have to add a few last words after that. Got the microphone.
Hello, hello. Did you have a good time? Because that was incredible. Labour not seeking reward is what I got from that. And at National Prison Radio, we know what it means to be a phone call away. Our telephone number is free, just so you guys that are listening know. Remember, it is a free number. You do not need to add it onto a pin. Just pick up the phone and call us, and you can spit all your bars. You can request family messages. You can send messages to your family. And I have the privilege of literally listening to bars every single week from the callers who are telling us stuff like, if only I had a wiser guidance when I was growing up. Those people who are coming from the care system, and that is the pipeline, care system to prison, and they're all talking about the bars of how they want to change, how they want to do better, how they want to be seen and heard. So we appreciate that. And I know when you mention about the boy in Feltham, I'm pretty sure a lot of people are going to be banging on their doors tonight. So thank you so much for that. And to all our listeners at National Prison Radio, as you can see, there are amazing people in the audience that are here to actually help change the system. And when you said shutting down YOIs, well, I was screaming. So thank you very much. And to our listeners, again, and all of you here, thank you so much for being with us.
Okay, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here this evening. Thank you for being so enthusiastic. We would like to invite you all to come and join us in the adjoining reception hall for drinks and canapes, meet the prize winners, meet Dame Rachel, meet everybody. Catering, hold on a minute, I haven't finished. Catering provided by Liberty Kitchen from HMP Pentonville. So a final thank you. I need to say thank you to our ushers this evening from Holland Park School. Thank you to them. Thank you to our sponsors. Thank you to Church House. And thank you to everyone involved. Good night.